Good evening, Council. I'm not sure if you can hear me, but I can't hear any audio coming from your end. I went on the YouTube channel as well, and it sounds like there's no audio coming from the chamber.
Hello, now can you hear me?
That is perfect.
Okay. Modern technology, I got to use this finger for a button. So welcome and thank you for taking the time of doing this presentation to us. So the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I'm going to share my screen here. And I'd just like to start off by saying I appreciate you taking the time to host me tonight for this presentation. I guess I'll do a brief introduction. My name is Jacob Hanlon. I'm the Municipal Solutions Manager at Food Cycle Science. I'm here to discuss, as some of you are probably familiar with, our Food Cycler program. It's a waste diversion program for municipalities within Canada. I'm sure we are a familiar face for some members, as we often frequent the municipal conferences like AMO and FCM. And I'm just going to begin here as well by speaking a little bit about who we are as a company, just to provide a little bit of background. So Food Cycle Science is a Canadian company. We are based out of Ottawa, and we are 100% focused on food waste diversion solutions. So we do this using our innovative technology, which is the Food Cycler. And while the Food Cycler is sold at the retail level through partnerships with companies like Vitamix, we also put them into schools. We have some partnerships with not-for-profits like Eco Schools Canada. And then the reason that I'm here virtually is to speak about our municipal programs. So our municipal solutions help many small, rural, remote, and northern communities keep food waste out of their landfills. Currently working with 130 Canadian municipalities across 9 provinces and 2 territories. And something that a lot of these communities have in common is that they either struggle with food waste management or they don't necessarily have options for their residents for organics diversion, whether it's because implementing a curbside green bin program, for example, is just not something that's feasible, or backyard composting may be the only option. But even with that, with our harsh Canadian winters, we can't do that year round, unfortunately. To briefly touch on the issue of food waste, I don't think I need to speak too much on it, but the main issue here is that it's avoidable. It accounts for a large portion of our household waste as well, sometimes up to 50%. And it's something that, since it's avoidable and it doesn't have to end up in the waste stream and in the landfill, we want to do what we can to keep it out of there. But when it does end up in the landfill, it has some pretty strong impacts. When we look at the municipal impacts of food waste, obviously cause their landfills to fill up quite quickly. There is currently a landfill crisis in Ontario and in Canada. And we want to obviously extend the lifespan of our landfills for as long as we can. When we do have food waste going in the garbage, whether residents are self-hauling or it's garbage collection, it's just additional tonnage that is being put on the road and having to be transported somewhere. And we want to avoid that. When we look at the environment, when you do put organic waste in the landfill, it produces methane gas when it's in that environment. It's squished between tons and tons of garbage, and it doesn't have the proper access to oxygen that it needs to effectively break down. So when it does produce methane, that methane gas is quite a bit more harmful for the environment than CO2 would be. When we look in our community, food waste in the garbage, as I touched on there, it means more frequent collection or trips to the disposal site. It also causes some odors and a bit of a mess that's unpleasant for us as people. But then it also is attractive for animals like bears and raccoons and other pests that like to get into our garbage. So when we do remove food waste from the garbage, overall, it solves a lot of these issues. And at the end of the day, it's reducing the amount of waste that's ending up in our landfills. So we often get asked the question, haven't we solved this issue already? And there are green bin programs out there, curbside collection, typically common in larger cities and places with the appropriate population density. And they also come with a pretty expensive infrastructure that needs to be set up for organics collection and processing. So this can be cost prohibitive for a lot of municipalities, and it can be operationally challenging to implement. When we look at backyard composting, it's a great solution. It's something that a lot of people typically have the space to do, but it does have its barriers. It's not feasible for everybody. It's certainly not a year-round solution in Canada. And there is the concern about animals getting into that backyard bin. And then when we look at the final solution here, which would be landfilling organic waste, I touched on those impacts there, quite costly, harmful for the environment. I mean, we really just want to keep the same way recycling out of the landfill. We want to keep food waste out because it has a substantial impact on our landfill life and on the environment. So I'm going to just play a short video here. And this is just going to depict the food cycler and what it does. So essentially what we have done is built a small appliance. It's about the size of a bread machine, and it focuses on making food waste very easy to deal with and right at home. So it can essentially be used anywhere that has a plug. I know in the video it's on someone's countertop. Countertop space is obviously quite precious. So with that removable bucket, you can actually have your machine anywhere in the house that has the plug, and you can just move your bucket back and forth between the kitchen and the machine. The food cycler processes pretty much all of our daily food waste. You can put in things like meat, poultry, fish, dairy, even some bones. And then in 8 hours or less, so typically an overnight process, you end up with about a handful of a nutrient-rich, dry soil amendment, often comparable to a fertilizer. I think I touched on there, the machine can go anywhere that has a plug. And while a lot of people do keep it in their kitchen, it can go in the garage, the laundry room, or really anywhere else in the house. So these are the two food cyclers that we implement into our municipal programs. Biggest difference would be the size capacity. So while both machines are similar in their actual footprint that they take up, the FC30 is a 2.5 liter capacity and the Eco5 has a 5 liter capacity. We recommend the Eco5 for households of 3 people or more, but we ultimately leave it up to the residents in our municipal programs to decide which machine is best suited for them. And I'll just touch on that process here again. So when you put food waste in the food cycler, you click the button, 8 hours, typically overnight, you have about a 90% reduction in the weight and volume of food waste. So that end product that comes out, it's completely dry, it's odor-free, and it's nutrient-rich, and can actually be integrated into your gardens and into your soil right away once it comes out of the machine. If someone were to be using this throughout the winter time, for example, that byproduct can actually be stored indefinitely as long as it's in a dry place. So a lot of people will just stockpile it in a bucket throughout the winter, and then when spring planting comes around, they'll mix it into their garden. But we understand that not everybody has a garden or wants one, so there are other beneficial uses for the byproduct. You can put it into a backyard composter or a similar, like a tumbler or green cone. It can be dropped off at local compost sites. In some of our programs, local farmers will accept the byproduct, and then community gardens as well. And it can also go into leaf and yard waste systems or green bin programs where those are available. Now, when we look at the economic impact of the food cycler program compared to the more traditional waste management method, with that traditional method, you have a heavily burdened system with unrelenting costs, trucking, labor, maintenance. It's a lot of moving parts and a lot of costs that add up to manage waste. But with the food cycler, it's a truly decentralized approach. It's happening right at home. There's no need to transport anything anywhere. And you avoid those unnecessary additional labor costs, greenhouse gas emissions, and I guess additional emissions that would come from putting trucks on the road or driving your food waste to a transfer station or to a landfill. Now, shifting gears here more into the actual municipal program. So one thing we've learned from working with municipalities for the last 4 years is that whether they are rural, dense, northern, southern, they are quite receptive to this program, and residents are actually quite happy when their local governments bring this type of opportunity to them. A lot of our municipal partners, they're municipalities who just don't have options for organics other than, let's say, backyard composting, which is maybe 8 months of the year. So with the food cycle program, what's really nice is you get to bring a method of waste diversion to your residents. And they don't have to live in a big, dense city for them to be able to actually divert their organic waste. Now, I mentioned we are working with 130 Canadian municipalities. To date, we have completed pilot programs in over 100 of them, and we've received feedback from over 10,000 households. What we found is the results have been very positive. I'm going to just touch on a couple of these stats here, but essentially we send out an exit survey to every resident in the program as they finish up their pilot. And it's about 35 questions that we ask them, and these are just, I guess, a snapshot of them, but that participation rate, I'll focus on that top statistic there. So 98% of participants in the pilot are going to continue using their food cycler as their food waste solution moving forward. It's a very encouraging participation rate. Just to add some context to that, here in Ottawa, we have a green bin program, and we've had it since 2009. The most recent study from the city shows that only 57% of the city actually uses their green bin. Pretty low considering the program's been here for 15 years. So when we look at a 98% rate in the food cycler program, it is quite encouraging. The other stat I just want to focus on is the net new diversion. So based on residents self-reporting how often they use their machine and how full their bucket was, we're seeing approximately 300 kilograms of food waste per year per household that is now not going into the landfill. So quite substantial in terms of waste reduction for the household and saving landfill space as a municipality. So I have 3 slides before I'm going to wrap up here. This is essentially the pilot program timeline. So it's a 12-week program from start to finish. Upon a council approval, we will have our team work alongside your staff to help promote the program to residents. And we set up a full registration and everything. And essentially residents will register on our online portal. And then once that registration period is complete, we ship over the units. Residents will pick up their machine. And for 12 weeks, they use their food cycler. They track their usage in a really nice little resident guide that we provide them. And then at the end, they fill out that exit survey that I mentioned. They provide the review of the program, how much they use their machine. And then from all of that feedback, we put it all together in a really nice report and a presentation. And then we present it right back to you and back to council. And with that data, we show how much waste has been diverted within those 12 weeks. And we can project moving forward on an annual basis how much waste is being diverted. And then from there as well, we often provide some options for next steps. A lot of municipalities like to expand their program past those initial households. I will use the example of the city of Nelson in British Columbia. They did 2 small pilots to start back in 2021, and they are now about halfway through putting a food cycler in every single home in their city of about 5,000 homes. So they essentially turned their pilot program into a citywide organics program. This is the pricing structure of our pilot program. So you can see the retail price there at the top of $500 and $800. This is what you would find on the Vitamix website or on Amazon. We add in our municipal discount, and then we add in some federal funding as well that we have through Agri-Food and Agriculture Canada. That brings the price of the machine down by 50%. We then ask for a municipal subsidy of $100 per household that's participating. And then the residents who are registered for the program, they chip in that final amount, $150 for the small machine or $300 for the larger one. We find with this cost sharing structure, everyone is invested in the program. Everyone's invested in the success. The resident's going to use their machine because they've put some money towards it. And we have that municipal subsidy and the federal funding as well. Just to put all of that into context as well, when the program ends as well after those 12 weeks, the resident keeps their food cycler for good. But just to look at kind of the overall picture of the municipal program and the investment. So at $100 per household, if we use 100 households as that kind of clean number, the municipality would be looking at a $10,000 one-time investment plus shipping and tax. And essentially from that, you have 100 households that are now diverting their food waste for the next 7 to 10 years, which is the lifespan of the machine. These are our pilot size recommendations. We are happy to adapt to this number based on things like budget and resident interest. But essentially, these are kind of the sweet spots that we've found based on various populations. not going to go through all of these points because I am losing my voice at the end of this day. And if you don't have a copy of my presentation, I'll happily send over a copy. But just some reasons that may resonate as to why this partnership could benefit you and your community. I touched on a lot of these throughout the presentation. So again, I'm not going to go through them now, but I will make sure that you have a copy on your end. Just like to finish off, I guess I would ask that you receive the presentation as some information. I'm not looking for any decisions to be made today, but if there is interest upon a further discussion in pursuing a partnership and a program, we are happy to work with staff to put together a report and a recommendation to bring back to council or to bring back to the committee. So all that being said, thank you very much for your time and your attention. I really appreciate you watching the presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Yes, thank you, Jacob. I believe we have a few questions. Go ahead, Dave.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hi, Jacob. I think I met you at Ogra the one time. I think it was you that was there. We spoke. I'm just curious about the cost of the filters and how long they last and how do we acquire them and give them out or however that works.
Yes, thank you for the question, and I apologize if my council etiquette isn't up to par, but I believe I would say through the chair. With the filters, and I apologize for not touching on those through the presentation. So the machines have carbon filters in them. It's essentially activated charcoal, and they make sure that while the food waste is being processed, the smells don't come out into the house. The filters last between 3 and 4 months on average. They are essentially about $25 for a filter change. So a resident would be looking at $75 to $100 per year. 2 options for supplying residents with the filters. One is we provide our online resident portal link to them. This is typically the more common option. And then residents can just purchase them as the demand happens. We have some deals in there. If you team up with your neighbor, you order enough for a year, you get free shipping, things like that. We try to make it very economical for the residents. The other option would be, and this happens sometimes, the municipality will bulk purchase at a reduced rate a larger amount of the filters, and then either just supply it to the residents in the program free of charge to them, sell it at cost, or sell it at a profit. We ultimately leave it up to the municipality to decide which way they'd like to go, but most of the time they just opt for us to share the online portal and residents can handle that themselves. I will mention that it is activated charcoal, which is also sold at other stores, like I believe in pet stores for aquariums. If a resident wanted to get it in that avenue as well, that's always an option. And I guess the other option is to not even change the filters. If the food cycler is in your garage or your basement or somewhere where you don't mind smells coming out, it operates the exact same way without having filter changes. There will just be some odors that come out of the machine.
Thank you. Very good.
Yes, Jacob, Dave mentioned he had seen you at Ogra. Will you be doing any of the municipal conferences this year?
So we were at Roma earlier in the year. I know we'll be at AMO in August, I believe. I think AMO is here in Ottawa this year. I think in terms of the Northern and Northwestern Ontario conferences, I don't think we are at any for the remainder of the year.
But you're not at Ogra?
I don't think we're at Ogra this year. There's a potential we might be able to do a virtual presentation there, or perhaps donate a food cycler as kind of a door prize there. But I believe we won't be there this year.
Okay, thank you. Joan, you had a question? Comment?
I was just wondering, when you say $2 to $4 a month cost, how many times a week would you be using it?
Yes, thank you for the question. Thank you for the question. And I should have touched on the hydro cost there a little more. So on average, if a resident is using a food cycler, it's typically 4 to 4.5 times a week is what we found from the 10,000 plus survey results we've had. So based on using it about 4.5 times a week, you'd be looking at about a $2 to $4 a month increase in your hydro bill. One of the questions we ask residents is, did you notice any change in your hydro bill on a month-to-month basis while you started using your food cycler? Most of them either say they noticed no change, or if there was a change, it was quite small.
Okay, thank you. Any other, Chris?
These units are residential. Is there any larger commercial ones that your company supplies or have literature of?
Yes, thanks for the question. And we do have a suite of commercial units that range from, I believe, 80-liter capacity up to 1,000 liters. To date, we haven't had any municipalities that have subsidized those units. I believe the cheapest one of those, the smallest one, is around the $20,000 mark. And if we were to look at that municipal subsidy cost for $20,000, you could get 200 households in your community using the residential units. But we are open to providing that literature on the commercial units as well. They typically go in restaurants, food courts, hospitals, retirement homes. We do have quite a few of them across Canada, and I'm happy to provide more information on those as well.
Okay, go ahead, Dean. Your mic, Dean.
Is the process of these things without any mechanical involvement at all?
So it is a heating, dehydrating, and grinding mechanism. So I think one thing that we are very intentional about with the process is food cyclers do not turn your food waste into compost. You can't create compost in 8 hours. It's just not possible. But what it does do is it completely reduces it down to essentially a powder-like, almost a soil-like substance. While still retaining the nutrient density there, it eliminates 99.9% of pathogens and bacteria. And when you do reactivate that into your soil, it provides that nutrient density, and it helps with the plant growth and the soil health. But within the machine, it is a mechanical process with the heating and the grinding and the dehydrating.
So there's parts to it and everything that may be wearing out or that have to be replaced. Are they all available, the parts for these machines?
Yes, and I appreciate that question. So the food cyclers are quite robust in how they're designed and manufactured. So there really isn't much that can go wrong within the machine. I've accidentally, I'll admit, slipped a fork into mine by accident, and it still operates totally fine. But with our municipal programs, we have a 1-year warranty with all the machines. We have a full customer support team that handles all of that. I guess I'll mention that with our team being here every step of the way, anytime a resident has a question about the machine or an issue, or there is, let's say, a manufacturer defect or a user error, and they might need a replacement part or a replacement machine, our team handles all of that. We don't want that to fall onto the municipal staff. So we're there for warranty replacements, part replacements, and most of the time we'll actually just replace their unit and have them ship it back to us. And then we'll refurbish it here in our office.
One last question. Does it grind up bones?
Yes, it does. Fish bones, chicken wing bones, I guess the smaller bones it does do. You'd want to avoid putting in dense beef bones from a T-bone steak, for example. But for the smaller bones, it definitely grinds them down, yes.
Great, thank you.
Okay, Jacob, on page 14, I was wondering, you mentioned right here, pelletized briquettes as home heating alternatives. Could you, can we burn this?
You can. And the reason I don't emphasize it too much is because it hasn't been done very often. We have had a few residents within our programs who have actually, happened to have a briquette press. They've pressed it into essentially bricks or blocks, and they've put it into their home heating system. It's obviously not going into a new furnace, but maybe more of a wood burning stove type thing. So it can be burned. It's happened on some occasions, but it's not the most common method, I would say.
Okay, I would imagine as it burns, there would be a smell.
I would also imagine as much.
Yes. Okay, one more question. Is there any, municipalities our size, 25,000, 3,000, that are enlisted here in Northern Ontario? 2,500, did I say?
2,500, yes.
Wow, 2,500.
Off the top of my head, I would have to check their population sizes, but I can give you a quick run through of our Northern Ontario municipal programs. I don't have their populations listed with them, but I can definitely, in a follow-up email with some extra information, I'm happy to provide that as well. But just to run through a few: Kirkland Lake, Cochrane, Hearst, Espanola, Deep River. Just going to keep looking through here. Temiskaming Shores, I believe, is one. Municipality of Wawa. I believe there's a few more on the list, but I'm happy to send the full list over. I guess, yeah, Kenora, Red Lake, Fort Francis. I'd have to double check for the municipal sizes for all of them, but even, I guess, not too far would be Central Manitoulin over there on the island. So we actually, it surprises some people, but we have quite a few northern and northwest Ontario municipalities. I think we're at 14 or 15, and considering how rural it is, a lot of people argue that people would potentially just throw their food waste out in their land or in the woods or wherever, but it's actually been quite a successful program over the last few years in those communities. So I'm happy to share that list with you and their population sizes in my follow-up.
Okay, thank you. Joan, did you have another? Kevin? I see no more questions. Thank you very much for the presentation and giving us this information. We're going to discuss it further, and somehow we'll be in touch. So
Thank you very much.
Jacob.
Thank you. I really appreciate
Thank
the
you.
time, and
Have a good
great
evening.
rest of your evening. Thank you.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Kevin, do we just lay it on the back burner for now and bring it back, or?
You can make a recommendation.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So staff can pull the actual report together to bring it back to committee for next meeting if you'd like, that way with a motion to bring to council, if you'd like. Or you can make a motion now to bring it to council, however you feel.
Maybe if we'd have a little bit more information, like you say, bring it back here next time around. And if we feel that it's something worthwhile that we should recommend to council, to me, it sounds very interesting. I'm just wondering the buy-in from the residents to have what they talked about, 50 residents as a pilot project. I think we could get that. So
some kind of public meetings or inviting the public to participate, listen to council meetings in order to really explain this thing, and maybe copies of the presentation that were made available to the public. But it's the interesting thing I think about it is that if it would actually reduce the amount of stuff going to the landfill, then it might be worth the municipality participating, and because there is going to be a cost. It'll be a cost to the taxpayers to buy the product, and then to cost the taxpayers for extra costs and taxes. So there's a two-way deal here for what it means to the public. But it seems to me that The important thing is to be able to convince the public that there is a value for us reducing what's going to the landfill. And most of the public is not really aware of how difficult it would be to get another landfill. I was part of a project years ago when we were looking for a new one. When we thought this one was going to be closing very shortly, we went on a long hunt and we hired a consultant and everything to help us. And we combed the municipality. I mean, we were all over the place. And a site is very difficult to find for all the reasons you can imagine. Is it suitable geographically? Is it suitable for the actual kind of soil or rock or where it is? Is it suitable to any nearby residents? Because believe me, if there's anybody nearby, they aren't gonna want it. So it would be a hellish expensive, difficult thing to get a new landfill. So any years that we can extend the life of that landfill it's a valuable and useful investment. But we have to convince the public of that too.
Yes,
I'll
Caitlin.
leave it at that.
So Dean, you mentioned about an additional cost to taxpayers. Are you talking beyond that $300 investment that they would have in their machine?
Well, the individual buys the machine, but the municipality is subsidizing.
Right, so the municipality would have approximately a $10,000 investment. We could easily find $10,000 somewhere in something that's not necessarily a priority in order to not increase taxes, but still provide this program.
That's a matter for council.
I'm just saying,
I'll just-
a $10,000 investment, like we don't necessarily need beautification with plants and flowers for one summer. 2 summers, maybe, I don't know how much that costs, and you could have your $10,000. And then it's not affecting any taxpayers besides their I think it was $300 investment. And that's, yeah, only for those that participate. So then you're not putting a tax onto people that are not using the program. Just a suggestion.
Thank you, Caitlin. Joan,
I was just wondering, if do we have any idea how much food waste is going into the landfill?
it's, I think that's very hard, but go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, we don't have any, we don't have a scale, so it is just kind of, everything's just a guesstimate for what really goes in, so.
I mean, I just wanted to say that my own I mean, I have a backyard compost, so all of my kind of vegetable scraps go in there. But my food, you know, I mean, I try not to have too much food waste, but everybody has food waste. What I do with it is I end up putting it in the freezer in a plastic container. And then eventually when I go to go to take my garbage out, that plastic container goes in the garbage as well as the food waste that's inside of it. Cause I don't want to put it out, for my dogs to get into it. So everybody has food waste of some kind, I would say. Even when you,
Determine what the amount of food waste is in there compared to everything else that goes in.
Okay,
Maybe some more.
Michael, Dave?
I think in the presentation, there was a number you had here, an average, I think it was around the 50% is food waste. Something like that. I forget exactly, but I did see something in the presentation of an approximate 25 to 50% is average for.
yeah, actually on the news today, they were talking about the UN came out with a report saying that worldwide, of course, almost 20% of food is wasted.
Cause I know like at my place, I compost, I'll do it year round. It doesn't compost in the winter, but I still put it out, but I do everything except bones. I don't put bones in there because they don't compost, but the meat, everything goes in there. It's just plastic garbage cans that are ventilated with holes in the backyard and nothing touches that and it works very well. But I think I was gonna mention first, as what Caitlin was saying with the 10 grand. That's a one-time thing, and the machine, I think he said, has a lifespan of 7, 8 years, something like that. 7 to 9 years. I think just what we're saving at the landfill would cover that cost. And I mean, it's not an actual cost that we have, but the lifespan, the faster we fill the landfill, the faster we have to pay to expand it, the faster we have to close it in the future, which is, so I think that 10 grand is totally covered just by the saving at the landfill.
If we get 10 grand worth of participation.
That's right.
Also,
That's right.
Chris?
Through you, Chair. I retired, about 3 years ago. Prior to that, I used to manage government buildings. And part of our responsibility as a large landowner, we had to do waste audits. Doesn't mean we sampled the garbage all the time, but we took a random date. We took all the garbage, broke it all apart, and weighed it all to see what we were actually sending out of the buildings to do recycling within the buildings. So you kind of have to look at where you're going with your garbage in the community. That's why I asked the commercial aspect. If you go to a centralized drop-off location for your garbage, you can have a commercial unit where people bring their green bin, compost bins, and have it dropped off and composted so it doesn't get into your waste stream. If you do the curbside pickup, you have your blue bin and your garbage and your waste green bin, and that's could have been brought to the dump and broken apart at an area to be composted. Right now, you bring your branches to the dump, you grind it up and you compost it there. It ends up going most likely on top of the landfill as a way of not bringing dirt in. You use that soil product. So, there's probably a lot of people would be interested in this unit. I know the Horticultural Society, if it was introduced to them, they would be very keen on it, and you can get probably 50 occupants, but you got to look at where you're going with your garbage, and 50 people not going to satisfy your 2,500 residents. You got to capture everyone, not just a small group, unless you buy one unit for every person, and the likelihood of everyone using it is not going to be the case. And the only really way to do that is to weigh their garbage and send them a bill for the weight of the garbage. And if they're paying for the wet waste and the garbage, they'll change their tune once they get a bill for garbage pickup at the curb. So you have to look at where your garbage is going now and how to take it apart. And then if you're going to go this route, then you have to have everyone do it. So that's where you look at the commercial aspect of it.
I think the commercial aspect of that might be a good idea for a privatized business to take that on, instead of the municipality putting out that kind of money, because I don't know how many people will actually bring their food separately to a site like that. Well, currently we only have recycling curbside.
Yeah.
Okay, Kevin?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Here, our site will never be big enough to have a compost pile. So that's why things like this are being looked at. You need a large amount of organics for those programs to be coming in. So our site, just due to our population, we won't ever have the landfill site. That's why stuff like this is coming to our table to do that. And as for bringing something to a centralized spot, like a private company, they would have to get, the Ministry of Environment's approval for a compost, which I just don't see how. It's the same as getting a landfill. It's just a very difficult process, but I know they were actually talking about bringing one here 2010-ish, and it got shut down. And like the residents it was a no-go. French River residents did not want that. I don't see it ever coming to fruition here. But that's why we don't have compost at the landfill site, just so we're not circling the boat on that. This is just another way to compost outside of what we're doing.
Yes, Caitlin?
I think we need to just look at the fact that, yes, it may not work for everybody. Maybe not everybody is on board, but those that are going to put the investment in along with the support of the municipality, and that little effect is still in the long run going to help our landfill. Even if we went with just 50 households, that's $5,000. That's something that I think the municipality could find the money for as a pilot project, see how successful it is. Word spreads in this community pretty quickly, so even those 50 households could say to their neighbor, hey, check this thing out, watch this work. And it could skyrocket from there. And then we could get, you know, more people involved. And I find that the education aspect behind it as well is super important. So we need to be talking about the length of our landfill and the problem with the length of our landfill and those in Ontario, that this is a current problem. This is a small way that you, as your family, can help mitigate that problem with our landfill situation. Amy
Thank
has
you,
a comment.
and I agree with you that if Dave does it and he says, hey, Bob, look how this works, and it might snowball.
Yeah.
Yes, Joan?
I think that Earth Day, you know, I mean, hopefully if we continue to do Earth Day, that needs to be really the place where you are educating and talking with the public. I mean, I would love to see, you know, if you're going to talk about the landfill, I mean, it would be, you know, we should have, you know, you know, some kind of a display board explaining, you know, what's going on. I don't know, maybe people still won't, some people still won't be interested, but that's the only way you're going to do it, I think, is maybe it's too late for this year, but you know, maybe it's
Well,
not.
It could maybe be a project for next year if we decide to, then you
Well,
could,
even hopefully with
you could have
recycling,
4
I mean,
machines at different stages of the.
if you can get, it seems to me that if you can get people interested in even recycling, right? I mean, we need to get the participation up for recycling, correct? So surely we can do that at Earth Day this year. And if you get them interested in recycling, maybe that will, you know, get the ball rolling for other things.
Okay, Kevin?
Through you, Mr. Chair, like we were talking about in our other committee for Earth Day, we are gonna have a municipal table set up with the recycling information. That's where people are gonna get the little prizes that everybody, or not prizes, but the door gifts for coming. Like that's where they're gonna get that information. We're gonna have extra blue boxes. That's what the municipal table is gonna do, is recycling this year. So as always, we're pushing that initiative. So that just wanted to make sure everybody knew that.
And manned by municipal council.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So we're gonna have 2 staff members switching out with council. So that way there's, it is like staffed all day.
Okay, Dave?
And I think that this composting is a little bit easier to sell than the recycling because for one, a lot of people buy dirt to do plants or gardens or whatever. So anybody that's doing a garden or plants or anything, that little investment for them is nothing compared to buying dirt every year or something like that. And then even like your garbage doesn't smell if there's no food in it. I can leave my garbage for weeks in my porch and it never smells. I don't put food in it. So this is, it actually, you could see the benefit in your own home compared to recycling, whereas if you just throw it in the garbage, you don't see the benefit of recycling or not recycling. That's my thought anyway on it.
Okay, so we're gonna bring this back next meeting. Moving on, 4.2, information, verbal update. Floor is yours, Kevin.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. Tonight, just a quick verbal report on special household waste collection. Just so if anybody here doesn't know, the municipality does offer a service for curbside collection for people that are senior or disabilities or limited mobility. Right now, we have 6 residents or so on the program. The Environmental Service Department is considering bringing a report to council looking to stop these agreements in 2025. I just wanted to bring it to this committee first to discuss why we're looking to stop the service. First, the municipality is picking up waste and pickup trucks that do not have the appropriate licensing to be hauling waste. So right there, that should be done. But second, staff is put in an awkward situation determining who gets this service. So when people call up and say, well, now somebody has to decide how disabled are you? Why? Like, there's no clear parameters in this service. And uncertainty of how many people could try to get onto the service. It's not really an advertised thing the municipality does. It's just something that if, you call, it will, it'll be offered to you, but we could all of a sudden have 200 people sign up and then we'd kind of be in a real big predicament. This is just one of those things that has always been offered. And as everyone knows, I've been manager 2 years, slowly working through the problems and trying to fix all these situations. So I just wanted to bring this to this table so everyone can, discuss on how they feel about this or have any questions on the service.
Go ahead, Dean.
We've had this service available for quite a while, but we do have some criteria as to who is eligible for that service. It wasn't just meant for anybody to be able to say, well, pick up my garbage from. And originally it was to deal, to be helpful to seniors primarily, who for one reason or another had difficulty getting garbage to the bins. Because the only way else was to haul it. And if they didn't have transportation or they were elderly enough, I hate to use that term, elderly enough that they couldn't carry the bag of garbage out or whatever, we thought the municipality, the council at the time, I remember when we did it, thought that we should be able to help our seniors to this extent. But they needed to have the help in order to qualify. It wasn't just for anybody.
Okay, thank you, Dean. Yes, Kevin.
Through you, Mr. Chair, just to comment, just to ask a couple questions on this, Councillor Wimborne. Do you know when roughly this was? Because we don't have any parameters other than it says in the form to seniors or persons with disabilities who have limited mobility. There's no real literature other than the form. And when, I'm just asking the date because I'm not sure how far you're reaching back on this, because I know you've been a staple here for many, many years. So if this was before you needed a C of A to haul waste, that might have been why, but, or whoever was managing the department didn't really look into how you haul waste and, the proper licensing to do so. That's all.
Back in the early part of the turn of the century here, there was a fellow that we used to haul garbage, and he got nailed by the Ministry of the Environment of not having the license to do it. He was using a good sized pickup truck, and he was just doing it on a contract basis. You wanted your garbage hauled, you paid him so much, and he hauled your garbage. But he got kicked out of it, so that was the end of that. And then in the early part of this, in I don't know, 2002 or 1 or 3. The bin system was put in place. And the bin system has always been a kind of a dual problem. One is that it works good when it's done right, when it was done right. A lot of people found it good because the alternative was haul your stuff to one of the, at that time we had 3 or 4 landfills around. There were M&R landfills and that sort of thing. So the bin system kind of alleviated the garbage, and then municipality was doing it and licensed to haul it and all the rest of it. And so we've been doing it that way since I guess probably very early 2000s. And the attempt to help the seniors, the people who couldn't get to the bins, it was almost at the same time, not long after the bin system was here, that we were helping people. Primarily it was here in Noelville, but Mark tells me now we're even doing some out in Albany.
Yeah,
So-
through you, Mr. Chair. So it is the whole municipality now, so anybody from Nettville, Alvin, anywhere could do it. And it's like you said in the beginning, someone was hauling with a pickup truck and the ministry stepped in, which, you know, eventually the ministry is gonna catch this and we're gonna be liable. It's our waste trucks have a C of A to haul waste, but our pickups don't. So we can't be in this business. There's private residents that have or businesses that do these services for people. And we're still offering, I believe, I don't think the fee has changed of $100 since it was offered. It's in 2000. So it is not time effective to send two people to Alvin in a truck that should not be hauling waste to bring it to the landfill site when there's private businesses that can handle this.
It's a difficult situation now. I mean, I know what you're talking about, and I talked to Mark too, and he wants out of it because the difficulty of getting a permit and so forth, and, or having to get another truck in order to be able to do it, just as you say, a pickup may not be eligible for that. But it is a difficult situation, but I guess I still have some concern for people who are unable to handle their own, whether there's any way that we can do anything for those people who maybe have been taxpayers here for a long time and, but maybe I'm being a little too concerned.
Yes, it would be nice to help them, but that's when neighbors have to step in or something. Cause that's a real moneymaker for us at $100 a year, less than $2 a pickup. Yes, it makes 2 cents. Dave?
So that brings me to another question, kind of related, but not. So when the pickups are picking up garbage that's left outside of the bins, that's also not right. Right?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So that's kind of an emergency situation where we're going around to pick up, you know, illegal waste. We're not actively seeking to pick this up. We're controlling, you know, an abuse of the system that it shouldn't be happening. But as for us collecting fees and then, you know, actually trying to, you know, like schedule this, we are not licensed to do that. Our 2 waste trucks are, but those aren't meant to do curbside collection. They have the bins that come down, so you can't use those in those scenarios, so.
So, do you want a recommendation from us to council? To recommend to stop this?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I just wanted to bring it to the committee just to hear concerns, right? If anybody thought that this was too far or there was another thing we could do, just seeing some ideas. We will be bringing it straight to council because it is a level of service that council is offering. So their council is the one who's going to make the decision on it. I just wanted the advisory committee to kind of weigh in on it.
Thank you, Kevin. That's Joan, then Brad.
Okay. First of all, I just wanted to mention that in Minettville, in North Minettville, in the West Nipissing part of North Minettville, Jerry Mercer, a cousin of mine actually, has been picking up that garbage in his pickup truck for decades, as far as I know. I don't know whether he has, I've never even thought whether he has a permit or whether he's got the right kind of truck or whatever. Anyway, that's going on. But I just want to also make a comment that it seems to me that perhaps it would be fine with me if the municipality just told these people. I mean, it's like if they can't bring their garbage then they're probably not mowing their own lawn either, or they must be hiring people to help them in other ways. So I don't know, I guess that's just, maybe they could just do that rather than the municipality.
Brad, then Dave.
Actually, a question for Kevin. Do you know what the overall cost is of this to the municipality in terms of these pickups?
Through you, Mr. Chair. No, we're not sure. I could get a breakdown of hours through the Treasury Department, but we're not sure. It's probably about, I would estimate 4 hours a week, 2 employees, so, and a pickup. So we could probably come, get the number for you just to
Yeah,
be sure.
I guess that's where it all comes from is, if you can prove that this is an adverse cost to the municipality, then there's obviously, let's do something else about it. But if it's not necessarily a big deal and it's not costing the municipality a lot of money and it's got the added benefits of being the good neighbor sort of thing.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, like I said, the environment, like our department's just more worried about the licensing structure of getting into any sort of trouble with the ministry for hauling. So I know, Mr. Vio, he has a trucking company. He knows, he's had a company and, you can't haul without any sort of waste and it's considered hazardous so that way you have to have your C of A in line to be able to do certain things on the road. So I just don't want to see the municipality get caught in something that just because we've been doing it for 20 years doesn't make it right. So we're just trying to make sure we're making the right decisions now.
Dave?
I lost what I was gonna say, but but also we have to look at the cost of if we would get a truck license to do that, that would be a big cost. That would be a big impact. So I think I don't think we have a choice to do as Kevin is recommending and shut it down unless we can look at different options. But as for the way we're doing it, if it's not legal, it's not good.
And as far as I forget which Mercer is picking up on West Jerry, we won't go check anything.
But I'm assuming if he's got it's a contract through the municipality of West Nipissing, right? So I'm assuming they have in their
Agreement.
agreement that he has to have it. I'm assuming he should.
Go ahead, Dean.
I just wonder if it would be worth, someone from the municipality making an approach to the Ministry of the Environment and telling them what our issue and concerns are and what could we do that would be of a reasonable cost or effort to service those kind of people. There is quite a program going on in Ontario, government sponsored, to help older people stay in their homes. And I wonder if we use that argument with the Ministry of the Environment, if we could find a way that was cost effective. I guess that's the best phrase I can use, cost effective, to help those people further. And that's all I think I would say. But I think we should go to the ministry and see if we couldn't use that argument about keeping older people at home, like myself.
And if when Kevin brings it to council, maybe that's the
Yeah.
route council will
Yeah.
go. Kevin, then Joe.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Again, the reason why you're seeing this come to the table now is because there was no point for us to bring this up before the waste management study, because if it went to curbside collection, this wouldn't have been a thing. But as you're saying, the municipality should be doing this. Municipality council decided that the level of service was not to pick up at the curb. So this is kind of where we are. So we got to sort everything out now to make sure that we fall in line with what council has decided. So we're falling in line with what council decided. And right now what we're doing, we don't have the licensing for, so that's all we're kind of going. I just wanted to just make that clear.
Thank you, Joan.
Well, I guess I'm just wondering whether Edo Senor would have, is that within their purview? I don't know.
It might be, it might be. Enough said. Go. Joan.
I just want to mention that I'm going to be giving a talk on global warming on April 15th at the Minettville Community Center. It's going to be sponsored by the Women's Institute. And I'm also going to, with the help of a woman who I got in touch with from Laurentian University. She's going to sort of fact check my presentation. So if anyone's interested, I did schedule it for just before Earth Day, hoping to also publicize Earth Day. So Monday, April 15th at 7 o'clock at the Minnetville Community Center.
Oh, please. Because I don't know what I'm doing in an hour, so I'll forget. If you would, Joan, please. Anything to bring up? Brad?
Yeah, there was one question I had, and unfortunately, I don't have the little pamphlet that I received in the mail, but, because I've missed the last couple of meetings, I've missed out on a lot of this information, so I just, forgive me for being late to the table in this regard, but with respect to the, curbside pickup versus not, that was voted down by council,
That was voted down by council.
why? I guess that's my question, why?
I can't really answer. I know, we all voted, using, our best judgment. And it was, voted down. What was, well, not, I can't say curbside was voted down. I have to say the bin system, a 40-ton bin system was approved. If I can say it that way, and I can't speak for others right now. Dean, you want to add something?
There was a very vocal and strong contingent, lots of letter writing, lots of phone calls went into different members of council about the bin system as opposed to the curbside pickup. And the rationale, the thinking on part of a lot of people makes some sense. We have some difficulties even with our curbside recycling because of people's locations. We have so many very rural locations. Very rural locations and private roads and water access people. All of these factors, I'm sure, influenced the people on council who wanted the bin system because they felt that it offered a better system to those people who have the difficulty and of using curbside pickup. And that only stems from the fact that it is a little more difficult for those people, weekenders who were complaining and worrying about putting their garbage out on Sunday night and what was going to happen to it by Monday morning and before we picked up. I mean, I'm just using one example. There were some other examples that expressed the same thing. Those of us that didn't agree with that thought we could overcome any issues. That the financial savings alone would allow us to overcome any issues that might have occurred with the people that I'm speaking to about, the citizens who are in a more difficult location. And I guess that's the best way of putting it, of being able to use curbside. But council in a tight vote voted in favor of the bin system, and I think there's a lot of people that are not too happy about that, but in any event, that's what happened. And
Thank you,
that's why
Dean.
it happened.
Brad, I also took okay, I took a phone call from a person on Shaw Road telling me that the bin system would not work for him because he leaves on Sunday night and he goes Sudbury way. Last week, I took a phone call from another person on Shaw Road, and they just live about a mile on, telling me that curbside pickup would not work for him because he goes to Sudbury. He'd rather go to the bins. So two people live out on Shaw Road and two different points of view. So, and this is what council was stuck with, throw this ball up, will it come down, and that one, and
Yeah, I recognize that this is a difficult, project to get whichever way it's gonna go, because there is such differing, things that are out there. I was just wondering if there was only one deciding factor, and now it's obvious to me, no, it's a multi-level, very complex issue. But thanks very much. I appreciate the answers.
thank you, Joan.
Sorry, I know I've already had my turn, but that does bring up a question for me in that as a member of the public, you know, a taxpayer and a member of this committee, I'm confused about what kind of system we are going to have. Is it a compact? Are you going to compact the garbage? What's the cost going to be? I'm in the dark about this.
I guess we're in the same room. Because I'm in the dark, about it too.
Through you, Mr. Chair. It's the same system that I know the amendment kind of got, or the vote kind of got changed a little. That was just due to manning. It's still the same system with the 40-yard bin, and it's going to be a compactor that compacts all into one bin. So that's all. This is one big 40-yard bin, and it's just going to compact the waste. The bin gets switched out. It's pretty simple. It's just there's a lot of design that has to go in. There has to be the actual sites have to be built up quite a bit, so there's enough room for people to put their waste in. So it's just going to be a long process with C of A approvals through the MOE, and then cost is 600 and estimated 650,000, but also that's a system we've never ran. We're not really sure this is the best staff could come up with for pricing. So could be much higher, could be a little lower. We don't really know. So that's from, you know, that's what that's going to cost us to do it and put it in, and taking the volumes of waste that we are hauling right now on our trucks. That's what we used as calculations for the hauling coming out of each site. So it's, as long as there's, you know, with breakdowns and all the other stuff that we can't really account for, we did our best to get it that it's around 650 as it was manned. So it's probably going to go down now. We haven't got those numbers back to council. So.
Thank you, Kevin. Chris?
Do yours.
Sorry, Chris. Dean, did you want to chime
I
in?
was just gonna make one comment. In my ward, I have a lot of water access people who were fortunate up until now that the supply post had a bin there that the people on the water on the lower French on the main channel could all use, just dump their garbage there, and the municipality was emptying those bins. But the municipality decided not to be emptying private bins anymore, and neither did Mr. Lacoste want the bin anymore. He didn't want to be bothered with the garbage and all that stuff in his property. But these people, I had a fair number phone me and say, what we're going to do? I said, well, if it depends. If you had curbside, we'd have a facility for you close to Lacostes where you could put your garbage and it would be picked up. But I said, if we go with a bin system in Albin, it means you're going to haul your garbage to Albin every time you're leaving your cottage, and that's going to be the closest way to get rid of it. And but I guess what I answered a few letters. I had a few letters from people, and what I tried to impress on people is we have a huge geographic municipality, very, very large, and a lot of it is remote. And to please everybody with one system is not going to happen. So then it came down to what system could we do that would please the most in terms of just ease of access and ease of use. And the other part of it would be, and be cost effective. Well, there was a huge difference in the cost to the taxpayers between the two systems. I'll leave it at that.
Chris?
Just new to the committee, so give me a couple committee meetings to get used to this process, and some questions will be coming.
Is that as they say, as a joke, is that a promise or a threat?
I'm really focused on the certificate of approval, especially the lagoon. And the dump. You know, I keep thinking about the lagoon as more homes come. What's the capacity of that lagoon? Who's using that lagoon? I dealt with a lot of aqua. There's a lot of process with the Ministry of Environment that I used aqua for a number of my sites. So there's a maintenance requirement. So the revenue is hopefully covering the maintenance costs, capital costs, and future growth of the community. Whether we need another lagoon or are we accepting sewage from other municipalities through our?
I'll let Kevin answer a few of those questions.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So, if you look back in our meetings, I believe the last meeting, 2023, Aqua presented with all the findings. We did sonar survey where there's lots of room for expansion. As for user-based, last year we implemented a new rules to the lagoons that no outside waste from outside of French River can come. Because what was getting hauled to our lagoons, 66% was from outside. So now that's tightened up to just here. So, yeah, we got lots of space and we're looking at doing some improvements this year, coming up. So, if you just go back to that one, it's a pretty in-depth, long, meeting we had on Aqua's presentation. So yeah, they went through everything with us pretty in-depth.
I do find that your municipality's electronic data of meeting minutes is quite impressive to see that you can log back and see the minutes. And I do like that. It's something to see.
That's nice to hear. Thank you. Dean.
The lagoons were originally put in here just for the town of Noelville. And at this point, it's only the people who are connected to the sewer system here in Noelville that pay most of the cost of the ongoing cost of the lagoon system. But we do have a system in place now that when I get my septic tank pumped, I have to pay a fee to put that stuff in the lagoons. So everybody in the community is helping to underwrite some of the cost of the lagoons. But originally it was purely for the town of Noelville and the people who were connected to it with their sewer system.
Caitlin. Dave.
I said enough for now.
Okay.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I just want to remind everybody, Earth Day, Alvin Community Center, April 20th. We got the signs up. I think Jones put in a lot of hard work, so is Bob, get this going. So we have Science North coming out. We have Sudbury Boat and Canoe, a whole bunch of vendors. Sudbury Solar, we have Carol Rashawn's bringing her food truck out. Yes, so it should be good. Bring the kids out. There's gifts for everybody that comes out. So the Alvin Community Center, April 20th, 9 till 4. Actually, Michelle might be able to chime in on that. I don't know. I'm not in charge of buildings.
Oh, yeah.
We're getting closer.
Yeah. I need a resolution to adjourn. Dave and Caitlin, all in favor? Carried. Thank you.